Here we go. My computer was lagging. Okay, so these are notes on 3.2, and we are solving equations that have like terms and parentheses. So let's talk about this. So we're going to start off with a word problem. Why would we ever need to deal with problems like this? So let's read this word problem together. It says a baseball game. A group of 5 friends are going to a baseball game. Tickets for the game cost $12 each, or you could say it's $60 for the group. The group also wants to eat at the game. Hot dogs cost $2.75 each, and a bottle of water costs $1.25 for each bottle. The group has a total budget of $76. If the group buys the same number of hot dogs and bottles of water, how many can they afford to buy? So what I want you to do right now is pause the video and go through and identify all the key elements of that paragraph. Things that you know, things that you don't know, make notes to yourself. Go ahead and do that right now. Okay, so here's what I did. Now it's not going to be identical to yours, but we should have some similar things. First of all, the tickets for the game cost $12 each, but I don't need to know how many tickets are bought. I just need to worry about the total amount of the tickets, which was $60. I also am making a note that hot dogs are $2.75 each, water's $1.25 each, the total cost is $76, and then I noticed it told me that hot dogs and bottles, I have to buy the same number of them, so I made a note there. And it's saying how many of hot dogs and bottles can they afford, so that's my variable, that's the thing I'm looking for. So to solve this, it says let n represent the number of hot dogs and the number of bottles of water. Then $2.75 times n is the cost of the hot dogs, and $1.25 n is the cost of the water. And we're going to write a verbal model. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the cost of the hot dogs. We're going to write it out in words to help us solve the problem. So the cost of hot dogs plus the cost of the bottled water plus what? We have to add in the $60 for the tickets, so the cost of the tickets is going to be the total budget, or the total cost. So the cost of the hot dogs, they helped us with that. It's 2.75 n, because we don't know how many hot dogs we're buying. And the cost of the water, they helped us with that. It's going to be 1.25 n. $60 total for the tickets, and we have a budget of $76. And then we're going to solve. So this is why we did last chapter. We have like terms right here. So we're going to add those two together, and 275 plus 125 is 4, and those are n's. And now look at what I'm back to, a two-step equation just like we had in last section, guys. So now we solved that two-step equation. So I rewrite the 4n plus 60, and then I'm subtracting 60. And whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. So I'm subtracting 60 to both sides. That cancels out, and we're left with 4n equals 16. They want me to rewrite it so I can show the next step that I'm dividing each side by 4. N equals 4. So the group can afford to buy 4 hot dogs and 4 bottles of water. There's my word answer for my word problem. All right, nice work. So we're going to just practice now some of these problems where we might have parentheses or where we might have more than one variable in a problem. Okay, so my very first question here is 2a, and here's the solution for 2a. They're getting us started on that. As you can see, I have the distributive property. And if you don't want that minus sign there, make this plus a negative 1 right now. And then you're going to distribute the 6 to both of those. So 6 times 2 is 12. The plus sign comes down. 6 times negative 1x is negative 6x. And now I have a two-step equation. So I am going to rewrite this right here, 12 plus negative 6x. That's just writing that, and that was that right there. Okay, we're just rewriting that statement. So what is happening to this x is being multiplied by negative 6 and added to 12. That's a positive number, 12. We always undo addition or subtraction first. So how do I undo adding 12? I subtract 12 from each side. So 12 and negative 12 makes 0, and I'm left with negative 6x. Make sure that negative sign came down. And then I'm going to make this plus a negative. So a negative 24 and a negative 12 make negative 36. I'm too lazy to rewrite it again, so I'm just going to show divide right here. Divide by negative 6. We're dividing both sides by negative 6. That's 1, so 1x, or just x. And then negative 36 divided by negative 6 is a positive 6. And then we're going to show the check off to the side here, because they didn't leave us room for a check, and I want to make sure you understand how a check works. So this is letter A. We're rewriting the original problem. I got my equals with my question mark, and then it's 2 minus 6. Instead of x, I've written 6. Now you can do order of operations here. You don't have to distribute. So I'm just going to make this plus a negative, rewrite my negative 24, and then in parentheses, 2 plus negative 6 is negative 4, and that equals negative 24. So it works. Okay, so let's do letter B. Letter B is right here, and they've started the solution for letter B right there. So the first thing I'm going to do is distribute. And I don't like that I have a minus sign and a negative out there, so I'm going to make this plus a negative to deal with that. Negative 2 times 7 is negative 14. Plus sign gets rewritten. Negative 2 times negative 4x is a positive 8x. And then I'm going to just, I don't like necessarily all the work room that they have here, so I'm just going to go from here. I have to get rid of negative 14. I'm going to do column work now. So I'm going to add 14 under both of those. We'll ignore that. We added 14 to both of those. So I'm left with 8x equals 10 plus 14 is 24. And then I'm going to show divided by 8 to get x by itself. X equals 3. Let's check it underneath there. Negative 2 times 7 minus was what the original number was. 4 times x, which is 3, equals question 10. So order of operations, I'll make this plus a negative. The negative 2 stays out. I'm going to deal with parentheses. And in my parentheses, I have add and multiply. Which comes first? Multiply. So there's my negative 12. I don't need to distribute. I can just do parentheses again. So that's a negative 5. And is negative 2 times a negative 5 a positive 10? It sure is. So you will still know if you got 100% on this before I will, because you're going to check your work. So we're going to flip, oops, I got to turn the page. We're going to turn the page over to here. And right now I want you to practice these, let's see, number 1, do a practice for number 1, and then do a practice for number 3. Skip 2 and 4 for a minute. So pause the video and then show your work on 1 and 3, and then come back and see how you did. Okay, so you're coming back to check what you've done. Did you make this plus a negative 1x here to help you with distributing? If not, you're going to make sure that that minus sign carried its way through. If you did, you worked out and you got x equals 7. And then you did step by step on your check, 3 steps there to make sure it worked. See where it said check your solution? If you didn't check the next one, pause the video and check it. Okay, the next guy, x equals 5. You distributed again. I made that plus a negative, so I didn't make any mistakes. You distributed through, and you got x equals 5. All right, so if you have a question about that, make sure you see Mrs. Lyman. Okay, so now you're going to do number 2. And number 2 is kind of like the problem that we did on the very first one here on the first page, okay, where we just have multiple variables on the same side. So we're going to be adding them together. So what you can do right now, I'm going to make that adding a negative, and actually I'm going to want you to pause it. I think you can do this one. I know you can. Go ahead and pause it and do that guy, and then come back and see how you did as well. All right, so let's see, how'd you do? Did you get y equals 6? See, these two guys were on the same side, right? So we combine them and make them 7y. We have our normal two-step equation from there. Plugged in the 6 to check it. It worked out perfectly. All right, the last example, we're going to shoot back up to example 3. We've been doing these. I know you can do this. There's a minus sign in front of the 4, so let's fix it right now. Let's make it plus a negative. And if you don't like that minus sign there, you'll make that plus a negative. And if you want a 1 in front of that x, you would do the same thing there as well. I'm going to actually fix the next guy down here, because that was where we're starting to solve the problem. We do not add or combine until we deal with this multiply first, right? And that's my number 1 mistake you guys are going to do. You're going to try to combine the 6x and that x there. So you must distribute first. So we are distributing right now. So it becomes 6x plus negative 4x plus a positive 4, because a negative times negative is a positive. That was our distributive property. Now you can combine like terms. So 6x and negative 4x make 2x. And now we have a two-step equation. So we're going to subtract 4 to both sides. I'm going to be lazy again and just write it in column format. Ignore the 14. Subtract 4. So we get 2x equals 10. Divide by 2. X equals 5. Okay? Now when you check it, it's going to be a little bit trickier, but it's totally worth it to know that you're going to get 100% on this problem and on your test. I'm going to rewrite the whole original thing, but instead of the x's, I am writing my 5 that I believe it is. Okay, so now you're going to do order of operations, which is parentheses first. At the same time, I'm going to multiply 6 times 5 out here because it's not going to affect the problem. And then 5 minus 4, is 4. And now let's make this plus a negative. You could have done that right away if you wanted. 30 plus negative 16, does it equal 14? It sure does. So that's another problem correct. Good job. Okay, last one. I know you can do it. Down here, number 4, pause that video and get going on it. All right, here you go. X equals 8. You distributed the negative 2 through, then you combined like terms, then you did your two-step equation work to your one-step equation. There's your answer, 8. Plug it back in, and look at my check. It's 4 steps, guys. You could even have 5 steps in this check. So make sure you're showing your work step by step. All right, good work. Good job. So you're on to your assignment now.